What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Final Gravity, a podcast about craft beer, friends, life, and existing on planet Earth. I am one of your hosts, Cuzzin T.
I'm here too. I'm the Viking Peaches. What's up, everybody?
I thought you went second. I'm third. I'm CJ. I'm here too. Groovy Bears in the house.
He does usually go second, but he
Were you giving me a cue? I was just waiting for Josh. I was like, yeah,
he was in the middle of chugging his beer or taking a sip of his beer as it rolled into.
If he's being a shitty employee and he's just drinking his beer, I don't think that's my fault.
I just keep my 30th day of the season, guys. I'm exhausted. Forgive me.
Oh, that's all right. All right, we are set up here. Welcome back to Final Gravity. We have been away for a couple of weeks because my ass got COVID. But now I'm better, and I can taste and drink and smell again. So that's a dope thing for me. And I can be around my friends. And
Literally,
we can do this thing.
like a week after we released a mini talking about the idea of losing your sense of taste and smell, you go and fucking get COVID.
Yep. I had all the symptoms. No sense of smell, no sense of taste. My hearing got all fucking weird. It was a fucked up time. It was a real fucked up, 2 weeks. That's for damn sure.
Well, we're glad you're feeling better now and not
yeah,
bad.
Same here. So for anyone that says, oh, it's just the flu, fuck you. Anyhow, we're going to continue our discussion on Oskar Blues this week. I guess, Josh, what did you say? There's literally there's no old Chubb anywhere in Central Oregon.
I ran over to the liquor store to pick up some beer after skiing today, and actually the liquor rep the beer rep that comes into J-Dub and make sure we're supplied on beer happened to be at the liquor store, and we're talking about it and stuff. And I asked him, I was like, "There's no old Chubb here?" Because he actually used to work for Oskar Blues too for a while. Yeah, they didn't have Old Chubb, and apparently the entire state of Oregon is currently out of Old Chubb. Besides, he knows they still have it at the Ray's Food Place in Sisters, Oregon, which, given current conditions outside, because we had a blizzard this morning, would take a long time to get to and from. So I just bought a variety pack instead. Kind of the same variety pack we bought last week, 3-4 weeks ago, but drinking a couple of the other ones that we didn't drink on that episode. So right now I'm sipping on the Mama Pills, and then I also have the Good Night Red Ale to sip on a little later. But yeah, the Mama Pills, it's a little yellow pills.
Did we do the Mama Pills on the tasting episode?
No, we
didn't have that. Okay,
Winnie, the Dales,
it's been so long I don't remember.
Yeah, Cannabis. No, this one is a Bohemian style Pilsner, 4.7% alcohol by volume. And I am dumping beer on the floor. Let's see here. It is, this one was canned actually 12/22/2020. And it has the lovely little note, Mama's Little Secret, on the bottom of it. I love the little notes they put on the bottoms of these cans. But yeah, it's a nice kind of golden color Pilsner, super clear. You can see my face through it with the nice new camera I'm using.
Very bright beer.
And you can see that Drink the Cosmos right there, because that is an important thing to see.
Oh, yeah. I still have so many of those glasses at home.
Yeah, those didn't really get used.
No, the onset of early COVID shut down my beer event, but
whatever.
You could
do them as like a giveaway or something, but...
I tried that, and I got rid of about a half a dozen, and I should probably do another one now. Just a very nice... Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to with Oskar Blues, the same thing we were talking about at the end of the last episode, they just do a really good job. They had an idea in mind of what they're trying to make as their end product, and they just dialed it in to get it to that. It's just a nice, well-balanced Pilsner. It's nothing insanely over the top, but it's what I would expect while drinking a Pilsner. And I drank the hell out of the ones in the last mix pack I got, and I'm excited to drink all the ones in this one, too. Nice.
Damn.
Hell yeah, it sounds like a delicious beer. What are you getting flavor-wise on that bad boy? This isn't a tasting episode for those that are listening. We're just doing a little bit of beer review before we get into tonight's conversation.
I get a bit of that kind of the classic kind of Pilsner straw flavor. Okay, like when I'm drinking it, it just kind of tastes like kind of that old school mill. Little bit of the graininess, little straw going on there, kind of to match the color of it. There isn't any like super distinct flavor that's jumping out at me. Like, damn, that's what I taste. It's just good balance. Obviously, it's not like a hoppy pilsner or anything, so not really getting a whole lot of hops coming through. It's just kind of very much focused on those grains and the grain aspects of it, which quite enjoying actually. Really good light
I've
beer
had that
for
in the
after a
past.
long day of
Yeah.
almost dying.
God, that was some crazy shit. Maybe we'll tell that story a little bit later.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had that. I've had that Mama Pills in the past, and I think it's just a fantastic beer.
I'm a fan.
We on the other hand over here are getting down on some Old Chubb from Oskar Blues, which is their Scotch Ale, 8% alcohol by volume, 12-ounce can, and the bottom says canned on 10/19, and it just says 12-ounce Chubb.
I'm assuming that's 10/19/2020, not 10 of 2019.
No, 10/19 of 2020. Yes. For those that want to see here on the bottom of the can, if you can see
Yep.
that. I like CJ brought this up when I brought it over. The relabel or the rebrand.
New branding on that shit. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, this
I
Scottish
haven't
style.
seen the rebrand on it.
Yeah, the tartan style can boxes like this too.
Okay, wait, no, that is the one that I got last time around, but
Okay.
I drank it all before this episode. So.
And it is just a beautiful brown, like dark red, like in the light. There's like some very dark red tones to it. But man, this beer is good so far. It smells great. Whoops. I gotta stop.
Whoopsie
doing that.
daisies. Super
Yep.
tasty.
Yeah.
Super
On the
tasty.
nose, it's Scotch ale.
Yep.
There's really no other way to describe, at least for me, because I'm still at about 90% on my olfactory. I haven't completely gotten my sense of taste and smell back, but definitely better than it was.
Yeah, this is. I actually have not had this beer
So good.
in a long time, and since moving out to Montana, I kind of have sworn off Scotch ales because it's something we'll probably touch on later on today. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot for just kind of a.
Yeah, we all know how you feel about cold smoke. We all know how you feel about cold smoke.
I'm pretty
like
sure
it.
we brought
I
that
don't
up
like
a
it.
few episodes ago, but
I don't like it.
Yeah. I just,
But this is super tasty. I mean, this is
what was that old cartoon? It's just like, no, sir, I don't like it. I forget which cartoon. now.
green eggs and ham? I will not have them. No, I will not, Sam. I will not have
No,
my green eggs
no.
and
It
ham.
was like something on like Rocco's Modern Life or something or like Doug. He was like, no, sir, I don't like it.
Paul Giamatti in Sideways felt the same way about Merlot that I feel about Scotch Ale.
Maybe-
American Scotch Ale, which is pretty much that I just don't fucking want to drink it.
Is that
But,
like how Steve Buscemi feels about tipping? What? I don't tip.
it's exactly like that. It's exactly
What do you mean you don't tip?
This is tasty though. Yeah, super malty, super clean. Lots of dried fruit.
Yeah,
Lots
great
of,
big
lots
body.
Of toast. It's a good beer. I mean,
It's a really good beer for editing ski videos while you drink.
That's such a niche drinking category. I wonder who in our audience is like, oh yeah, absolutely. That's the beer that's calling to me. What I've been really looking for lately is just the beer to drink while I edit my ski videos.
It's either that or whiskey, man. Like, whiskey's really good for
I feel like that
editing.
gets dangerous real fast, though.
Like, I don't drink vodka while I edit videos. I don't know why, but vodka doesn't work for video editing. Whiskey, good shit. Scotch ales, good shit. A light beer, not what I need. I need those creative juices flowing, you know?
Concentration liquids. Focusing solutions.
I also
Oh,
drank
boy.
through 4 of the Old Chubb Scotch ales while editing the last ski video I put out. So.
Is that why it looks like that?
What, awesome? Yeah.
That's not what I said. Oh, man. But earlier this week, actually, I think I sent it last week. I sent an article off to the boys, and we will post it in the show notes. But it talks about, like, and this is just a very, very brief overview, that talks about that, as beer begins or has evolved over, the last, decade and a half, 2 decades with the explosion of craft beer and everything else, like, there's got to be an evolution to the way we taste beer also. So we can't continue to taste beer, and use descriptors that have been used, since the beginning of beer. We have to adapt and evolve with all of that. So the article's actually really good. Where did
It's on Craft Beer and Brewing, and it's
Yes,
it's
craftbeer.com.
Mirella
Yeah.
Amato, I believe, to credit the writer. She's and she's a beer taster and prominent craft beer enthusiast, and she wrote the article. And it really is a gem of
Yeah, the title of the
material.
article is "It's Time to Rethink How We Talk About Craft Beer Basics."
Yeah.
They little bit of overview about, and we gotta look more into this too, because everyone tells the story about how IPAs became a thing back in the 1800s. Overhopping things because they needed them to stand the sea travel to the English troops over in India. But I guess the story isn't true. But she
Supposedly
doesn't
that's
go.
a myth. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't go into the story of where it actually comes from. No, she just says it's wrong and continues to move through the article.
I think given some reading, because we've talked about this, and I know we've mentioned this before. I know that we've all done a podcast where we've referenced that story. That's largely what you're
times.
taught about India Pale Ale, and even as a brewer, that's something that I still look back on, and it has to me historical relevance and makes sense. It makes sense in the fashion of like. It's like boiling your pickle jars. It's like, yeah, absolutely. Hops are preservative. High alcohol is preservative. So it makes sense that to ship a beer to colonists elsewhere, that you would make a stronger and more aggressive version of that beer to
I
be
wonder
packaged
if
stable.
that's like part of the story.
But not. I think what
But not
she's
the whole
really trying to
story.
influence is that's not the whole thing. That there was already people
Yeah.
working with higher hopped
Higher
beers or
alcohol.
higher alcohol
Right,
ales, and it just kind of the lexicon changed to, hey, we got to ship this beer around the Horn of Africa to India. It becomes an India Pale Ale. You know what I mean? Like
I would
think
have to wonder if maybe they were already making that style of beer. Like they didn't make it because of that, but when a big ass ship went down around the Horn of India, or the Horn of Africa to go to India, maybe they had like 10 styles on that ship, and that's the only
Right.
one that didn't get fucked up, right?
Sure.
Like maybe that's just the one that survived the journey.
Yeah.
Well, and in researching that claim, I was reminded too that the phrase IPA didn't come about until almost half a century after they had started shipping. So it wasn't like somebody sat down and said, "Hey, tomorrow we're going to make an India Pale Ale, and this is what it's going to be." It was years and years, decades and decades later. It was like, "Oh, that's the beer that did that? It's a strong pale ale. It's an India Pale Ale." You know what I mean? So that's also an interesting part of that language and that definition is that I think now we're so far past it. We look back on it and say like, oh yeah, back in 1600 and what the fuck ever, someone was like, yeah, tomorrow you got to brew an IPA. That wasn't the conversation that was being had. It was like, hey man, that ale's got to go X amount of distance, so make sure you drop 4 more extra pounds of green in that shit too.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's
I
very
don't know
different
if we're
than
getting
what we have now.
the full story on everything.
Yeah.
Or
the language has just shifted again too. I mean, look at how many things are called an IPA today and aren't, right? By a lot of brewers, definitely.
Well, I mean, by the rigid definition of what an IPA should be, yeah, most of the stuff doesn't fall into that category.
Right. So, different time, different language, and different way of describing something that now we're trying to paraphrase and say, well, there was more to it than that. It's like,
Yeah.
well, maybe.
But that's the crazy part is that's how so much of history just gets left out. Like they only
or culturally changed.
Yeah, it's like they only bring so much of the information about the origins of this thing to the public, and it just becomes common knowledge.
Right.
Like how most people's textbooks don't include Nikolai Tesla. It's
Right.
all Thomas Edison.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. So in terms
We
of the
all
IPA,
do still know who Tesla was.
Yeah, but not formally what
Not
they taught
to the
us
same
in schools.
extent,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Yeah.
what's interesting to me, on that conversation of the divide between the IPA
the India Pale Ale and how that got developed. Later on in the article, she's talking about, do we really need to separate, as far as like language goes, an ale versus a lager, right? That one just seemed really interesting to me. This being a beer tasting podcast, we do tend to get really into those little nitty gritty nuances and everything about like, oh, this is this kind of a lager, this is this kind of an ale, this is a, the specific style of the beer is very important, but to a lot of the people out there who are going to a brewery and drinking something, it doesn't really fucking matter to them if it's an IPA or a pale ale or a lager or this. And it's become so convoluted too, because I've had session ales that are hoppier and more ABV than certain IPAs, and IPAs that are lesser than a pale ale. And like, there's just this really weird kind of the way brewing's been going lately.
I like to think
how much
about
does that
it.
really matter these days?
Yeah, and I have begun to equate that to how people try to jam bands or artists into certain genre categories, and you're just like, are you just making stuff up at this point? You know, it's like they like bands that like create, like not even create their own genres, but people have to have some sort of label on things. You know what I mean?
Or even a
It's
band
like,
that's cross genre, right? Like,
yeah, but you're still going to get to the argument where you're going to mention that cross genre band. They're going to be like, no, they're definitely like this.
yeah.
You're like
You can have a ska band that makes a bunch of punk songs also, but that doesn't
well,
mean they're not a ska band. But there's certain songs
Ska's
of theirs
punk
that
with
aren't
horns.
ska and more punk.
ska's just punk with horns, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. But so many
Well,
people
pretty much,
hate
but
ska.
again, different designations.
This is definitely a conversation. To me, I chuckle because like I've had this conversation through wine, through food, through music, for a very long time, and it always, it's cyclical. It always kind of comes back every so often, and people say, hey, this is the right way to talk about things. She makes a lot of good points, and I think that you guys both hit on it too, that the lexicon is different now. And, I mean, Josh, this is a wonderful perspective for you as someone who's worked a lot in service of beer, is when generally someone comes in and asks for a lager, they're not asking for a Dunkelweizen. They're not asking for a Martzen. They're not asking for a Schwarzbier. They're asking for the most yellow, most inoffensive, fizzy liquid they can get, right? Now, we know that does not encompass the lexicon that is lager, right? Like, there is so much more to it than that.
Well, there's times where someone comes in looking for a lager, and I've actually got like a really dark, like a Dunkelweizen on tap.
Yeah.
But I've also got like a really nice blonde ale, and I
You
give
know
them
what
the
they
blonde
want.
ale every fucking time.
They want the blonde ale. Doesn't matter if it's an ale or a lager in terms of beer knowledge. They've now taken that 5-letter word and put an aesthetic association to what that means behind it. And Americans are prone to do that across anything, right? We could sit down and go down the rabbit hole of pizza. We go down the rabbit hole of anything, and how Americans change it to, Mexican food.
Pizza's
That's
not even
a great example. Most
Pizza's
Americans
not even Italian.
have not had Mexican food.
No.
Yeah.
We've had our mom's tacos, and that's something that's in a flour shell with a lot of
Tacos,
cumin and shit.
burritos, and like that. It's all bastardized, Americanized
So
shit.
we're at that point now with
It's
the lexicon
delicious,
of beer where
but-
we're kind of hitting that stride, I think, and so I think that's the real big one that she's harping on is finding ways now to maybe just better ways to talk about the subject, because it's hard. I mean, I have people every day that come in like, I want a lager. It's like, well, we don't brew lagers, but just like Josh said, I know that if I gave you the blonde ale, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for
Exactly.
You're just
It's
looking
not
for
that you
fizzy
want a
yellow
lager,
beer,
you want a light beer.
right?
And
Or,
not just light in color, but light in flavor. Oh my god, that was loud. Sorry, my computer just like dinged in my
You're all
ear
right.
in the middle of that
Oh,
sentence.
nope,
but,
you're good.
The big one
if
for me
you're
is like
wanting a dark
Hefeweizen.
beer. You don't necessarily just
Yeah.
need a porter or a stout. There's
Right.
dark
Yeah,
lagers out there that will totally satisfy you.
How often at JW have people come in and just say like, I want a hef, and in the back of your mind you're like, no, you don't.
You want a
No,
wheat
you don't.
beer.
You want an American wheat beer, and that's okay.
Yep,
but we should
that's all you want.
we should learn to teach you that what you want is an American. You don't want a Hefeweizen.
You don't want that.
Hefeweizen is a chewy, thick, rich, pale wheat beer with so much complexity. You don't want that.
No.
No. You want something snappy and light, and maybe something with an orange slice on the side of it.
Looking for a Hefeweizen, and I pour them the Incredible Pulp Blood Orange Pale Ale from Boneyard. And they're so fucking satisfied with
They're like,
it.
oh my God, this is the best thing ever.
Well, no, they're like, I want a Hefeweizen. I'm like, I don't have any Hefs on tap. Because we have 6 taps, right? So we have a very select beer range that we go through. And this being Bend, there's certain things that you just kind of have to have. You have to have your IPA, a pale ale. And then, like, we've got our beers that we kind of stick with. And then we rotate a couple of them in and out here and there. The Incredible Pulp Blood Orange from Boneyard, it's a nice light blood orange pale ale. And you do get that kind of oranginess on it, but it's definitely not like an over-the-top hoppy pale ale. Get a little bit of malt, a little bit of that fruitiness to it. I can't tell you how many times someone comes in and they're like, I want a Hefeweizen. I'm like, I don't have that, but here, taste this. And they're like, pint of that. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Let's go.
I always laugh at that too. People are like, you got any Hefs? I'm like, yeah, I don't think you know what that means.
You keep using that word.
I mean,
but I don't think it
I
means
say
what you
this
think
stuff
it
in my
means.
head. I don't actually say it to the customers' faces, but it's like, yeah, that's not what you want, but I know what you want and I'll get it for you.
This article kind of piggybacks on the American perspective of brewing that's kind of coming back around to that very same idea of, hey, everything we're doing is in relevance and in solidarity with these ancient styles, with these very specific things, but we're doing it our own way. So how can we call it that? You know, champagne is only made if it's in Champagne, France. If it's only gone through a specific procedure.
Scotch is only Scotch if it's distilled in Scotland.
So we're kind of starting to talk about beer as American, and again, we can even, we can look at it from the positive and the negative, like going back to the IPA conversation of the milkshake, the brute, all these things that are really the American paradigm of IPA, and say like, well, we got to start. It's not going to India anymore. Should we even be calling it an IPA, or is there another name for this?
Was it the beerists that put up like there's like 16 different categories and probably more than that of like growing IPA versions?
I'm sure they've done that. Yes,
At least, I'm sure.
There's like, most other beers almost follow like a very specific way to be produced. IPAs, people are just throwing whatever the fuck they want into them these days. You know what I mean? And just slapping the letters IPA on it and being like, yep, there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's really disheartening, and I was actually this is actually kind of neat as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I don't care if the rest of you like this.
Fuck your feelings.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. Shout out first of all to Fred, our patron.
Fred.
What's up, Fred?
We're happy to have you as a patron, and happy that you're happy that we're back doing this again. So thanks, Fred.
And if people want to join Fred in being shouted out and being happy to be here with us, check out our Patreon, link in the description.
Yep, it'll be in there. I mean, I feel like we're in the middle of the episode. It's not the best place for that, but whatever. Hey, we're just doing this on the fly. It's the first time we do.
So.
It's important. We want people to know that Josh and I are doing just fine. But T
I'm always
could
the
fucking
struggling
use
one.
some support, and if we can see,
I have spent.
Josh and I are literally like it's hard. I'm looking right into the camera, like you're talking. We're rolling in the fucking ducats, dude. It's unreal. Like I've never been able to go to a strip club and just throw 1,000 ones up in the air, and that be like, well, that's the first time I'm gonna do that tonight.
It's funny when you did that because all you did was walk in and throw it in the air, and then you walk back out. I was like,
those places make me nervous. The bouncers are
Okay.
huge.
Goals, man.
The bouncers are
Bouncers
huge.
are huge. The girls are extremely attractive, and I get nervous talking
And
to attractive
but
girls, right?
I
So
have a-
I just
it wasn't.
I wanted
It
to
wasn't
throw
even like that.
$1,000
He
in a strip
like.
club.
He just didn't. He like. It wasn't that he wasn't enjoying what he saw or anything else. His mindset was, I'm gonna walk in this strip club. I'm gonna throw $1,000. I'm gonna walk out.
The great part was it wasn't even my $1,000.
It was mine. He threw my money into the air.
I think it'd be rad to have more Patreons, just because it's like, well, that means that we're doing something where people enjoy it. Like whatever
Yeah,
comes out,
super
comes
happy
out.
for
But like
that.
that's neat. Fred, thank you for supporting us.
And I'm gonna bring us back in now. So I part
Close
of this
that door, Thomas.
Yep. Part of that that Patreon thing you can now join us on Discord. There is a free link. Damn it! I don't know why we're still talking about this shit. We'll talk about it at the end of the show. Fuck. Anyway.
bro, we're all just here, just hanging out.
Yeah.
Interesting thing. You were, about to shout out Fred because that was going to make you talk about something. So
Yeah, I was moving in the direction of talking about the Discord for Final Gravity, which we'll mention at the end. But I am part of a few other Discord chat channels, and shout out to the Story of the Year Discord. I fucking love you guys. There's a few craft beer nerds in there that I think are gonna find their way over to this podcast. But it's funny because like I'm talking to people from the U.S. and Australia and a few other places around the world, and even right here in the U.S. And I got in a conversation about craft beer, and some guy sent me a picture of his fridge, and it was like Red's cider, a bunch of like Bud Select, and he's like, I like craft beer, and I'm like, ah, I mean, and then it turned into like a there's it's not really like a joke in the thread, but some people will like post up stuff about it, like, oh man, you're gonna set Cuzzin T off with this garbage craft beer talk, But it's cool to see like how people talk about craft beer from different countries, the U.S., especially like in Australia is the main person that I've been talking to. Shout out Christine, I want to say. I'm really bad with names. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not going to shout out everybody. Shut up, CJ. But, they talk about like the availability that they have, as far as craft beer goes. And, other people talk about, they're like, oh, I like really fruited stuff. So I sent them over to like, what is it, 450 North that does all those crazy slushy beers. I was like, maybe you'll like this. Check this out. It's not really beer as far as I'm concerned as a brewer. But you might like it.
Where is this place at?
450 North.
Where's that at?
405 North. Out of California, I think.
Okay. They're like putting their beers through the slushy machine and just.
Well, it's God. I was just looking this stuff up the other day.
it's 405 North.
405 North. 405 North. I got the numbers right, just not in the right sequence.
I don't know. That's again when we talking about the lexicon of beer. Like if you got to try that hard to make people drink it, maybe they should just drink something else. You know what I mean? Like
But I don't want to be the one that like pushes like. If you drink whatever you want, I'm really starting to understand that you're never going to be able to convince people of liking the same craft beer that you like, unless you're beer nerds like the three of us.
Right.
A really, really good just experience I had when I was over in Scotland a couple years back. Me and my brother were at this distillery, and we were going, and the end of this tour that we did at this distillery, they had us all sitting around this big, long table, and we were tasting the different scotches and everything. And I forget exactly how the question was phrased to the tour guide, and like he was also like our scotch tasting guide, but they asked him something like, like what's the best scotch to be drinking, or like what's the what scotch should I buy on a regular basis to drink at home, or something like that, right? And the answer was basically like, fucking drink the scotch you want to drink, right? Like everyone's gonna have a different flavor. Personally, I like a really hardcore peaty scotch. Other people like that really clean blend of a scotch. It doesn't matter. Like we've got our opinions on what beer should or shouldn't be, but at the end of the day, if you're drinking and it makes you happy, keep fucking drinking it.
And I'll piggyback on that and say that there are days where I mean, I've had people that I work with that say, like I like this one thing, but I'm not really much of a beer drinker. Like I'm not gonna get up in arms about that. That's okay. I want you to have whatever you want. I mean, if I had a vineyard tomorrow, I'd grow wine for you, but I don't. I'm a beer maker. So if you like beer, I hope you like the beers that I make. And if I make styles that are just not your cup of tea, that does not upset me. Nope. That's okay.
I'm not mad at you.
I'd rather have the discussion of, well, why don't you like it? right? So we
Or
can. So
I'd
we
rather
can,
have a discussion of like, what do you
what
like?
do you like?
And I will try and find
right,
something that
exactly.
falls into
How
that
can
category.
how can we roll with that? We this industry is one that is a service based industry, and so we are always trying to make people happy. Sometimes making other people happy doesn't necessarily that doesn't satisfy what I came out here to do, but
Yeah, you've talked about how
know.
you love IPA days in the brew house.
I mean, I drank an IPA before the show started. I think IPAs are great beers, but man, I do get a little exhausted with chasing the making of them, whereas there's just so much else out there. But I know they make people happy, so
Got to do what you got to do.
it's a 6 1/2 dozen,
Yep.
you know.
Well, and the reason I kind of ended up in that Scotland story in my head as Thomas was talking, because at first you kind of got there by talking about how different nationalities talk about craft beer and everything, and how it's different across the world from America. I mean, let's be honest, it's different from Oregon to New Jersey, right? Like, Oregon craft beer scene is so vastly different than that of any other state. California's is different from Oregon, is different from Nevada. Like, it's different. And
I almost feel like a lot of these
my first thought with that was
regions.
thinking about the
Sorry,
craft
Josh, go
brew
ahead.
scene in Scotland, right? Because when me and my brother were there, obviously we're drinking all the scotch we fucking can, but we're also a couple Oregon boys. Like, we're gonna find the breweries that we can find. We're gonna go drink those local beers. And it was just, it was a very different scene than we're used to, right? It wasn't like we went into a few different breweries over there, and it wasn't this whole IPA centric, let's make the hoppiest beers thing. There was a lot more European styles. A lot of the breweries that we went to and a lot of the pubs that we went to had a couple cask ales on tap in the pub, like just pulling that cask, which was awesome. And that's not something you see so much over here.
I don't think
so-
I've seen that anywhere out here. I mean, I haven't been
I
to
can think
every
of two
place,
places
but
off the top of my head here in Bend. I don't know anywhere in Montana. Deschutes Brewery, they have two cask ales that they usually keep rotating through different beers of theirs on tap. I love a cask ale. Has a much more nitro kind of experience to it, and then it's usually served at a warmer temperature, which I actually kind of enjoy. And then there's another spot over in Redmond called Porter's that my brother has told me they have a couple cask ales sometimes. I haven't had a chance to get out there yet, but pretty much everywhere we went in Scotland had at least one cask tap, if not a couple of them. And the breweries out there, they weren't focused on IPAs. They were focused on traditional Northern English styles of beers that they were going to be making.
yeah, there was one girl in the chat thread that was asking. She's like, "Do you make IPAs?" And I was like, "I do my best not to." And she's like, "Oh, cool, because I don't like IPAs." I was like, "Yeah, I've mostly been focusing on like German and Belgian style beers and stuff like that." She's like, "That's where it's at." I'm like, "I love you." You know, because you don't always find that like in people. You know what I mean? People are just like, "What's a Belgian table beer?" Like, well, I mean, it's a lot of things. It just falls into that category, you know. So trying to sit there and re-explain things to people that aren't that interested, as opposed to people that are like, "Oh my God, have you made this? Have you made that?" Because I think most of these people that what you guys were talking about earlier that come in with the looking for that lager, that light straw crispy lager, like you want a Budweiser. That's basically what you're telling me. You want a Budweiser. You want
really
a Bud
funny.
or a Bud Light that's not Bud Light.
Right.
What's really entertaining to me is when someone comes in, they're like, "I'll take a Bud Light." And I'm like, "Sorry, I only have Coors Light." And they say, "No, fuck that. I'll never drink a Coors Light."
From a crapper's, I mean, obviously, I roll my eyes at these same guests, but I think maybe again, when we talk about terminology and beer, it's important to remember that the idea is to try and bring these people into a comfortability section where they can start foraying into craft beer, right? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter whose blonde ale it is; it shouldn't be referred to as a Bud Light. No disrespect, Anheuser. No disrespect, Miller Coors, but we are talking about different things, and how do you get people to try things without feeling intimidated, without feeling like they are just the Coors Light drinker of your brewery is something again that we all have to kind of surmount. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I want you to try my blonde ale. Someday I really want you to know why it's a blonde ale and not a Coors Light, but for right now, that's not important.
Yeah.
I just want you to find something on that tap list that makes you fucking happy.
And this brings us full circle back to that article about how we need to change up how we taste beer.
Yeah.
And we need to push forward and evolve forward and, just stop using the same, what's the word I'm looking like the same rhetoric to describe beers, because back in the day, there might have only been a dozen styles of beer. Now there are hundreds of styles of beer, so there's got to be an evolution to your palate and to how you describe and what you use to describe the beer that you're drinking. It's all going to change. It's all going to move forward.
Yeah.
It's like when a band comes out with a new album that doesn't sound anything like the last album and people lose their fucking minds about it. Like you have to evolve. Like we grow and we learn as, organic fucking beings. Learning and growing is literally all we have control over in our own lives and control over our own emotions sometimes. You know what I mean? As long as you can learn and grow, I think you're doing all right. But the people that refuse to adapt, or not even refuse to adapt, but refuse to accept that things are evolving and adapting as things move forward, is also somewhat disheartening. You find those gatekeepers that are just like, craft beer's not the same anymore. Craft beer's not the same anymore. It's not like it was back in the 80s when Sierra Nevada first dropped that pale ale. It's like, dude, yeah, but there's going to be an evolution to all of it.
Like, shit changes. Do you have a cell phone on you? Well, if you wanted things to stay the same as they were, you'd still be writing your messages with a chisel into a stone wall in a cave for someone to find.
Yeah, hey, you remember that big-ass, bulky fucking PC you used to have in your house in the 90s? Now you have one in your pocket. So catch up. Understand that it's just going to be the way of things. Sorry, I'm done.
You're good. You're good.
I mean, that does bring up another point, though, just the concept of, and CJ, kind of what you were talking about, the approachability of it, right? Where there's, people coming in who, it just seems like this totally foreign world that we're talking about. When you start talking about craft beer versus someone's comfort zone of a Rainier or a Bud Light or a Coors or whatever,
Kokanee.
In that article, she was talking about how the beer tasting world has really evolved its language in a similar way as the wine tasting world, right? Because wine kind of had its new world renaissance and its comeback a handful of years before craft beer really took off in this country. And so there's that kind of prestige around obviously we do a tasting episode. We try to once a month, assuming none of us are having COVID and there's no tech issues or whatever. But
Hey, fuck you, man.
we do have a beer tasting episode where we sit here and we smell our beers and we talk about when they were canned and all these different things.
Because all of those things are important to us.
Well, they are. But you could see how for someone who just wants to go and taste a good beer at a brewery, there's kind of that entry level. If I was to go to a winery tomorrow and be surrounded by all these millionaires who are sipping on their wine and they're like, oh yes, this smells like fine leather boots, I'm gonna feel out of fucking place.
Smells like
right?
leather-bound books and rich mahogany.
Or oh yes, this wine smells like fucking a trench coat that was worn during World War II on D-Day. You're like, what the? How do you even fucking know what that smells
what do you
like?
even
Firstly?
know? How do you even know if that's what that smells like?
Yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
I can taste wine, I can smell wine, I can enjoy wine, but I'm gonna feel out of fucking place there because that's not my scene.
And so
Right.
these people who just want to have a good beer but don't necessarily feel like they need to dive into the whole tasting of it, when all their friends are like, "Oh yeah, come to the brewery with us. We're gonna go taste all these beers. This one tastes like this and this and that." You get that dude who's like,
As someone who's
"Can I
come
just
up
have
with
a Bud
some,
Light?" Like,
yeah, as someone who's come up with some descriptors in my time that are pretty off the wall, and my the servers at my brewery love to let me know that shit all the time. I will say the art of tasting is both super pretentious. Like, how dare we just get to sit around and be like, what is this fucking? Ooh. It's
I'm
late
a
season,
fancy fucker.
that's it's pretty unreal. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword and it has a place too. I mean, like again, we can go to any extreme that we want. And I don't know what the trench coat smelled like on D-Day, but I can't imagine very good. But I've had people tell me, hey, this reminds me, tastes like leather. It reminds me of my grandma's house, and I'm like, oh well, that's amazing distinction. Thank you, sir. And an amazing place to put, like, when I try and talk to people about flavor, I start out with admitting that it's pretentious, that what we're doing is a little ridiculous. It's also really it's there, and it's an amazing thing. And when we think about how America has taken craft beer in a direction that for several hundred, if not thousands of years, beer was certainly diverse, but not anyway in the way that we've made it now. We have to look at the conversation we have and be willing to have these points where it's like, wow, this is something different.
Look at how pretty that is.
This is a super tasty beer, guys. Oskar Blue's Old Chubb gets a big thumbs up from this side.
Look
of
at
the aisle.
that. Great,
yeah.
great head. Everybody loves good head.
Well,
And-
we don't know. There might be one person out there. There
I mean,
could be
if
one.
you don't
person.
like good head, then fuck you.
Well, I mean,
Well, that's
speaking
that's
of
all that's
the old
left, right?
Chubb,
It's not,
what you were saying.
But-
I'm the first fucking person to start relating a beer to an experience, right?
Right.
We were talking about Old
So-
Chubb earlier. I'm
right.
like,
Oh, yeah.
that's a perfect beer to be drinking while you're sitting there late at night
right.
editing a
And
fucking
so you see
ski.
what I mean is that there's some merit to just the idea that man, there's flavors in there that are nostalgic. There's memories in there that hit you in a good place. But then there's also that point where you're like, okay, dude, like, we get it, leather. Like, you can shut up now. You can take it a little easy on the tasting notes. Yeah, but
Yeah, some of that stuff gets like a little ridiculous. 10-ish years ago, I was out in Napa Valley in California for like a week or whatever it was, like wine tastings and all this other shit. It's funny that when you go to wine tastings, like, you're supposed to like spit instead of swallow for your last
That
S.
is a waste of alcohol, and that is alcohol abuse.
Totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. But listening to like the way that some of these people like talk about what they think they taste in their wine, I'm like, what are you like? Where did you even come up with that? Like what you were saying, like, oh, this tastes like a wet trench coat from the shores of Normandy on D-Day, and you're like, how would you even know what that's like? Shut your pretentious asshole face up.
I think there's a leapfrog effect that happens when people taste things and they want to say something clever, so it has to just drive that conversation further and further.
Say something that
over
people
the
can
ridge of
like
ridiculousness.
understand at least. Like when we were talking about I forget what beer it was. It was like it had the consistency of roasted marshmallow, but it wasn't like a roasted marshmallow type flavor. You know what I mean? It was like crispy on the outside but soft and mushy on the inside. Like that's a great
I had
descriptor.
that s'more variation of I think it was that Ivar the Terrible or something, but it was like a s'more variation.
No,
one
it was
that
the
I had
break
over
side.
here.
The
Yeah,
break side.
that was it. It was the s'more break side that was like the closest thing I could find to what you guys were drinking.
Yeah, but like these guys would say some shit like, this tastes like roasted down pillow over a campfire. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, I always think it's funny because when I was still cooking, I'd go down to the wine bar and we'd play that game, or we'd just try and come up with the most ridiculous wine.
But that's
descriptors.
different. You're doing that ironically.
Right. Yeah, very ironical, But like at the same time, that kind of is what happens with people, where it's like, oh, well, it tastes like red fruit. What kind of red fruit? Raspberries. When were the raspberries grown?
Who cares?
And it's just like it's just one of these things where you just keep fucking trying to go farther and farther and farther, push it.
This tastes like raspberries grown in a drought year in the northern fields of the southern hemisphere of the slightly western portion of California. And then they were aged in a cellar for 2 months before they were starting to be munched into the wine.
This tastes like water-soaked cedar chips that have been left out to dry on a hot summer's day in the Sahara, and they were then imported to the Americas in rum barrels, soaking in rum. And you're like, dude, shut up.
What I think that the author of the article, Mirella, does do really well is she really relates it back to food as a context, right? Like, well, wines work and flavors in wine come out because of how you compare them. And she really starts to draw that parallel with beer too, of like, oh man, super rich chocolatey stout, paired with something fresh and green, flavor profiles change. All of a sudden you have a different experience. So
Yeah.
I think that was something cool about the article too, is she, just like we were talking about, she backs up her pretentious flavor notes with like hey, there's a rationale behind this, and there's an experience that's to be had when you're having this beer in a certain place or at a certain time or with a certain food. I thought that was just randomly touching on that. Really unique. Excuse me about the article. So.
Yeah, I really like the way that she incorporated the food and wine and beer pairing section for that exact reason. It's everything is.
Well, an experience is in the moment, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What's good to you at one moment might be totally different had all things been going haywire. So.
Yeah, I mean, and it's.
I mean, I tell you what, cheap, shitty vodka tastes way better after 10 shots than it does on the first shot.
You're a poet, Josh. I've always said it.
You know what else makes cheap, shitty vodka taste really good?
Not
pouring
drinking cheap, shitty vodka.
Nah, guy. You pour it through a Brita water filter. Trust me.
Have you done that?
No, you know what?
That's an old college trick, man.
Better? Triple second lime juice.
Well, that too. Yeah, no, that was an old college trick that I learned. You take like a handle of fucking Leeds or Laird's or whatever the fucking shit vodka was back in the day, and you just pour it through the carbon filter in your Brita, and just let it drain through. It almost it smooths it out and almost like distills it a second time. It's crazy.
Whoa.
Because it's not a second distillation, but basically the nicer vodkas are, and not to delve too far off the beer topic here, but if we're going to be talking about liquor, it's basically the nicer vodkas. There's a tower on the still, and they go through this filtering process as they go up through that tower. So by the time they reach the top of that tower, it's got a much more pure vodka coming down that then they mix with water to dilute down to like an actual drinkable ABV. Whereas the cheap vodkas, they don't go through that whole filtering process. So basically what you're doing with that Brita filter is adding an extra layer of filtration onto your vodka to bring it up to that level.
You can take Laird's and make it taste like Grey Goose. It's incredible. Just by pouring it through a Brita filter.
If anyone from Grey Goose is listening, that's not what we meant to say, and we can't.
Hey man, I ain't looking for no Grey Goose sponsorship.
We can't go to war with your legal team, so we don't know.
I will go to war with the legal team over that.
That's on you, bro. I'm not joining that battle.
Is that where all of my money has been going into these legal battles?
You keep saying
because
shit
to
Grey Goose, and we gotta fucking
shit. We keep having to
covering
pay
that
for
fucking
it.
cost, dude.
It's no wonder I haven't made any fucking money. You fucking clowns.
To our listeners, how I deal with the shitty vodka thing is I just don't drink shitty vodka. I got this old Chubb right here from Oskar Blues. It's delightful.
Oh my
And if Oskar
goodness.
Blues is listening, that's our sponsorship. So
I would take an Oscar
take that
Blues
check.
sponsorship over an HRD sponsorship any
I'm
day of the week.
curious to see what happens if you take like shitty beer and pour it through a Brita filter. I don't think it's
Pretty
going to have the
sure
same effect.
Good Mythical Morning did that once.
Did that?
Yeah, YouTube channel Good Mythical Morning, Rhett and Link. They did an episode where they were pouring random things through a Brita filter, and I'm pretty sure I watched it pretty fucking drunk one night a while back. Pretty sure they poured beer through a Brita filter though.
And what was the result? I mean, I'm very curious. What was the result? Like, did you just get
Do you-
out of that?
do
It was
remember what-
clear. I think it still tasted like beer, but really what it does is it takes a lot of the particulate out, right? So
Okay.
it takes whatever you have, basically decarbonates it and makes it clear.
That
That was
doesn't
kind
sound
of
like
the
beer that I
general
wanna drink by
consensus
any
on
means.
most things.
Never mind. I retract my statement. Never mind.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
That seems like a waste of shitty beer or good beer.
Or
either way.
yeah, that just seems like a waste of beer. At least when you do it with spirits, it gets a little better. I think you can do it with gin. You can do it with most any clear liquids, solutions, alcoholic solutions. I don't know about the brown water.
Yeah, no, clear stuff, you're basically going to be taking away any contamination of the clarity of it. So it's basically going to be purifying it. But if you're purifying beer, you're taking away those things that are like the larger.
No. I meant
molecules in the
like
substance.
whiskey and rum and stuff. Brown water.
Ooh, I'd be curious with whiskey and rum. I don't think they did that, but
Well, we know what Josh is doing tomorrow. He's like, I'm gonna go get a Brita filter.
bye guys.
Go get a handle of Sailor Jerry's and make himself some Captain or
No,
some
I'm
Kraken.
working tomorrow for the first time in like 2.5 months.
Oh, that's right. Congratulations
Welcome
to Josh.
back to the workforce.
I am
gonna be
still very much COVID unemployed.
Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of like one of those weird gray area things. Not entirely getting payroll stuff, but I get to be behind a bar slinging drinks. We're just doing like to-go breakfasts on the weekends. So I get my one day, get to see some regulars, have a good time. And of course, right as we're about to reopen for the weekends, instead of this beautiful spring-like weather we've been having all winter, it snows.
Getting kicked in the dick.
But I mean, it's gonna be a good day. I'm super excited to be working again, even if it's just like one day a week. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Good. I'm sure they're glad to have you back. I'm stoked you're back at it, at least a little
Oh
bit.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. The job I had, I met up with my boss yesterday to just get some paperwork so I can do my taxes. And he was telling me that even if he hadn't let me go like 3 weeks ago or whatever it was, he was still going to have to let me go anyway because they have slowed down even more since I was there last. And like other people are just coming over and doing the station that I wouldn't. They have like 3 people rotating through the station that I normally did. I was like, well, damn.
I mean, that's, people have been asking me, like, when I run into someone I know on the chairlift or down in the parking lot on the mountain, people are always asking, like, why isn't J-Dub open right now? I'm like, well, truth be told, if you run a restaurant in Bend, you lose money in January anyways. And if you don't have any of your indoor seating, so you're limited to whatever small patio space you have in to go, then you lose even more money in January. And if you're just closed for the entire month, you're still losing money. So really, it's just a matter of mitigating how much money do you want to lose this month. So
Yeah. Very, very true.
But
Fuck. On that note, I'm not going to get into the conversation about the potential wage increase for minimum wage because that's not a conversation for here. But what you're talking about, Josh, like how are these people, like you're already operating at 50% capacity. How are any small businesses going to be able to compensate for
oh no, we're less than that.
less than what?
Not even 50%, dude.
You guys are probably, well, I'm saying like across, I would think the nation, I think the average is 50% capacity.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Oregon might have different rules, and state to state they might have different rules, but I think that the overall consensus is that it's 50% or less. So you're asking these businesses who have been operating at 50% or less for the last 52 weeks to essentially. I said I wasn't getting into this. Never mind. Not doing it.
You're in there now.
Not doing it.
You're
Nope.
in there now.
Nope. I'm done. It's not. That's for Plato 3 next week. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, let's talk about Plato 3 next week. We'll talk about operating a bar and brewery in the beginning of 21.
And the
during
can
COVID
shortage.
Still.
And the impending can
Almost a
shortage.
year after.
Well, like anything, I mean, it's the canning shortage. It's the rise of
Skywalker. Sorry.
I wish.
Wrong podcast.
Other podcasts.
I'm
Other
on that
podcasts.
one next week. We're talking about
Damn
why
it.
4, 5, and 6 were the best ones. But no, but also like you just said, small businesses burdening the shift and how we treat hourly paid workers is a really interesting conversation, and I support
The one thing
raising minimum wage, and I support small businesses. And right now, that's a
I
tough thing to do
unfortunately
both, you
don't
know?
think that it's. I'm not. Nope. I'm not doing it.
Plato 3.
Not doing it.
Save it for Plato 3. I think at that point, we have discussed our beer for this episode, everybody.
We've talked about beer. and about how
We talked
about
beer. We kept to the concepts. Yes, everyone.
And so if you're curious about what we want to say about what we're about to talk about, tune in next time for the next episode.
Well, what?
In keeping with the spirit of the Josh, are you still drinking Mama Pills, or have you switched over to something else over there?
Oh, dude, I'm on my third beer of the night.
Well, I know, but I want to know what that third beer is. It's a beer podcast.
Yeah, are you still drinking? Oh, you went Dale. You went Mama Pills.
I've been mixing this up, bro. No, so my second beer of the evening was the Goodnight Imperial Red IPA
Sick.
from Oskar Blues.
Delightful.
Which, nine Liddy nights. Litty, Litty nights on the bottom of that one. So that was my second beer, and right now I'm drinking the Dales. Just went back to the classic, a little bit lighter. And it's a fridge packer.
I'm not going to even touch that one.
Wrong podcast.
As we keep kind of this is the first, correct me if I'm wrong, block of our podcast where we've kind of focused on a specific brewery.
Yes.
And Oskar Blues being that brewery. One, because it's a fantastic brewery. Two, because it's something we can both get, even separated by several hundred miles. Let's just real quick as we I feel like we're getting close to wrapping up. Touch on.
Yeah, we're getting close. We're getting close.
We've drank a lot of things from Oskar Blues, and let's give that brewery a little love right now, and or a little not. I mean, Josh, you've just walked through the pills, the double IPA, and what are you sitting on? Oh, and Dales.
And Dales.
And
The Imperial Red IPA.
Imperial Red, thank you. And we're obviously working on the old Chubb right now. Again, phrasing, not going to touch that one.
Can't you just call it like a hoppy red ale? Does everything need the fucking IPA connotation attached to
that
it?
goes
very
back to
important.
exactly
God
what we
damn
were
it.
talking about
It's
earlier,
very
right?
important to selling beer.
The
But
things
what's
that we
what's
call
up with
things
Oskar
and how
Blues,
it's gotten
guys?
so
Because
muddied.
we've drank some Oskar Blues. What's the word? And
I think-
I'll happily dive in right off the bat. We all got really excited, so now I feel like an asshole doing it. I thought we were gonna have a pause. Everything I have from this brewery, and if we're just gonna set aside date code and things like that, notwithstanding, I'm always really pleased. They do a really good job. The Pils is great. I'm drinking a Scotch ale for the first time in who knows how long, and I'm not talking shit about it. This is delightful.
Because it's not cold smoke.
This is yeah. Sorry, Kettle House. That's the fact. I gotta stop calling out breweries by name. They know who I am. But what have your guys' feelings been over 2 episodes of Oskar Blues beer? Is kind of where I'm at. As a brewer,
Dude, there isn't much that I have had from Oskar Blues that hasn't been solid.
okay.
I mean, I'm not a huge Scotch ale fan either, so honestly, to me, I mean, I like Old Chubb, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's a bit of parallel to the Cold Smoke, even though this is an exponentially better beer. But I still kind of get the same idea every time I go into drinking Scotch ales, like the Old Chubb or the Kettle House. You're just looking for something smoky, a little body, not quite a porter, not even close to a stout, but more than an ale. Um, and Dale's has always been like just a fucking go-to, just a hard go-to. I mean, I like Sierra Nevada, but if I'm gonna drink a pale and I'm trying to get some shit done and I want to get a buzz going, I'll go get a 6-pack of Dale's over a 12-pack of Sierra Nevada.
That's a strong statement from a man like you. Strong statement.
That it is.
Yeah.
And I will stand the fuck behind it.
Bold move, Cotton.
Bold move, Cotton. Bold move.
And Josh,
We'll see if it pays
having
off.
ventured into several mix packs of Oskar Blues, what's been disappointing and what's not been?
Well,
What's going on?
I'm gonna. I think I said this earlier in the episode when I was talking about the Mama Pills. But just to reiterate it, I love Oskar Blues in the same way that Thomas loves Sierra Nevada. In that, I
was going to
think
say
they're
dick
damn
jokes, but
consistent.
okay.
Right, so like you go and you buy a case of Sierra Nevada because you know exactly what you're getting out of it, right? Like they always make their shit the way you expect them to make it. Oskar Blues, I feel like across the board, every beer that I've ever had from them, it feels like they had the final product. Like they knew what they wanted that shit to taste like, and then they brewed the beer to taste like that. Not like, let's brew a beer and see how it tastes. It was, here's what we're getting to.
They were
How
very
did we get there?
methodical. Very methodical
and
in the creation of
exactly.
these solutions.
So, their Scotch ale, it is a fucking Scotch ale, right? Their Pilsner, that's a fucking Pilsner. Dale's Pale Ale, it's a goddamn Pale Ale. It's not like, there's nothing about it that
There's no
particularly
misconception
stands out.
about what you read and what you get.
Yeah. There's nothing about it that particularly stands out that like, oh my god, this pale ale is amazing because XYZ. But when you drink it, there's also nothing where you're like, well, this pale ale is horrible because it's a fucking good pale ale. It's a good Pilsner. It's a good red ale. It's a good Scotch ale. They know where they're trying to get to, and then they build it to.
And
get
they
to
fucking
that.
execute.
And I think they do an amazing job of being consistent in their execution across the board.
They certainly know how to hit the notes, and living in a place now that is a little bit limited in what you can get in small batch. You're forced to really look at your major craft breweries, your godfathers, your guys who've been around a long time, and really recognize and respect the work they do. And
There are only
two
two things that will ever get me to move out of Montana, and that's finding a place that I can brew year-round because the weather is nice, and some place that has access to more availability of craft beers.
It's tough out
But right
here.
now, I'm stuck here.
But
So,
if,
fuck
we're,
it.
if we got to be stuck
What'd
with
you
it,
say? What'd you say? You gonna talk shit? Make sure people can hear you.
I wasn't talking shit, man. I'm just coughing out the word Oregon.
No, man, I'm talking like Southern California, where it's like 75 degrees, 345 days a year.
well, even with the inaccessibility to consistent good craft beer out
Listen,
here,
we still love people from Southern California, even though it makes Josh vomit for some reason.
If you're born and raised in Oregon, you got to talk shit about SoCal.
Whatever far north, Northern California. That's just like we're Southern Canada. You guys are just Northern North California.
That hurts. That hurts.
It should. It should. I'm glad it did, honestly. Fuck your feelings. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, bud. But yeah, I feel like this has been a quite enlightening conversation. And for those that want to go and read the article that we have been referencing all night long, it will be in the show notes. It's on craftbeer.com. Are we going to start wrapping this shit up here? What are we doing, boys? We are getting close. Yeah, we're a little over an hour right now. So yeah, let's wrap this shit show up.
I think we're at about that point.
I think so too. Big shout out to Oskar Blues for sponsoring these last 2 episodes. Thank you guys.
Yes, the
That
race
sponsorship,
car
though,
that
so
you
we can
guys
pay for
sent me
Thomas's
is
legal
dope.
fees.
Is
You got a
dope.
race car?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Jesus.
Did you not? I mean, it's insane.
I got a new mic. I didn't get a race car.
How did you think I was gonna buy that van I'm gonna be living
Yeah,
in, man?
I didn't think the company was going to send me like actual cash in a briefcase, but I guess I underestimated how great Oskar Blues is.
You and me both, CJ. You and me both.
You guys suck. You guys suck. Anyway, yep. Be sure to check out if you want to follow and support this podcast, go to patreon.com/finalgravitypod or follow us on the Instagrams at final.gravity.podcast. So many fucking
A lot of dots.
A lot of dots.
We're also sponsored by Dots.
Wait, dots? Like
The
Dippin'
candy.
Dots?
No, the candy.
the Dippin' Dots.
Oh,
candy.
okay.
Josh and I are getting like, we got free lifetime, right? Didn't we? Every time we go to a movie theater,
All the dots, man.
it's free dots.
I get all the dots I want.
It's insane. It's amazing how we've made this work for us, Josh. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm proud of us.
I'm
CJ.
really stoked on what we're doing.
If you want to
Bastards.
find me out there on the social medias, guys, the Viking Peaches on Instagram, Josh Thrain on Facebook, Project Enjoy Every Day if you want to copy yourself some of that dope ass merch.
Yeah.
And it is dope ass merch. And I'll rep him and T because you won't find me on the site. You can't.
You can't
just
find this asshole on the socials.
Can't. I'm underground. I'm down below. It's not a thing.
I have reactivated my Instagram, so y'all can follow me at Cuzzin_T. And if you're into nerd shit, go check out Nerd Universe.
Highly recommend it.
Dope
Great
podcast.
Dope podcasts. As far as I'm concerned, whatever. Fuck you guys.
I was being honest. I don't understand how we got.
Complimented you.
we were. This is why we don't rep you all the time. This is why you're not making any money. We just tried to help, dude.
Because
We just
I'm
got
the
fucking
asshole.
burned, dude.
God damn.
You know?
damn.
Jesus.
Yep. And if
Hey,
you
this guy's doing a great. Fuck you. All right. Well, okay.
eat a
Okay.
dick.
You know.
And if you want to join us for conversations outside of the podcast, but podcast related, you can go to our Instagram page and there's a link to Discord. And you can click that link and jump into some of the conversation channels that we have in there if you so want. But for the rest of this shit, are we done here? Are we done here?
I mean,
I
I'm
think
gonna
we've
keep talking to you guys and
accomplished our
drinking the
goal.
old Chubb, but I'm tired of being recorded right now. Let's just call this a night.
I mean, yeah. So, yep, go follow all the things. Go check out
Don't follow me.
if you're in.
Follow
Our
CJ
area.
everywhere he goes.
Oh no, the music is drowning everybody out. I don't know what's happening. Bye, everybody. Catch you next week.